The parade ground simmered under the unforgiving desert sun. Dust, fine as flour, danced in the heat haze, kicked up by the thousands of polished boots of the First Legion. Every soldier stood at rigid attention, uniforms immaculate, expressions carefully neutral. The air thrummed with unspoken tension, a nervous energy that transcended the heat. This was not just a routine inspection. This was General Alaric Thorne, the Iron Fist of the Republic, making his rare, dreaded appearance. General Thorne was a living legend, cast in the mold of ancient warlords. His reputation preceded him like a scorching wind, brutal, uncompromising, and utterly ruthless. His victories were etched in the history books with blood and fire, his decrees absolute. He rarely visited the forward garrisons, preferring to command from the secure, climate-controlled war rooms of the capital. His presence here, in the remote strategic outpost of Fort Astra, was unprecedented and whispered to be a sign of either imminent, glorious war or a particularly brutal purge. The very dust seemed to hold its breath as his motorcade approached, a low, guttural growl that silenced even the ever-present desert wind. Sergeant Anya Sharma stood in the third rank, her rifle held perfectly at the ready, her gaze fixed straight ahead. Her uniform, despite the recent desert maneuvers, was impeccable. Her dark hair pulled back in a regulation bun that defied the stray wisps of dust. Anya was a soldier, through and through. She believed in discipline, duty, and the Republic. She had risen through the ranks not with political maneuvering, but with sheer grit, tactical brilliance, and an unwavering commitment to her squad. Her loyalty, however, was not blind. It was earned and it was given freely, never demanded by threat. As General Thorne's armored convoy rolled onto the parade ground, the silence deepened, thick and oppressive. The roar of the engines ceased, and the general emerged, a silhouette against the blinding sun. He was taller than most men, his frame lean and hard, draped in a crisp, dark uniform adorned with so many medals it seemed to pull at the fabric. His face, etched with a lifetime of harsh decisions, was a mask of cold authority, devoid of warmth or empathy. His eyes, rumor had it, could freeze a man's soul. And looking at them now, Anya felt a familiar cold dread, quickly suppressed by a hotter fire of indignation. A junior officer, trembling visibly, barked the command, "Ottenhut, present arms."
Ow.
Thousands of soldiers snapped their rifles up, a synchronized thunderclap of metal and leather. Hands flew to temples in perfect, unwavering salutes. The air crackled with the collective respect and fear offered to the general. The sight was a chilling display of absolute subservience, a testament to Thorne's iron grip. But in the third rank, one hand remained steadfastly by her rifle. Sergeant Anya Sharma stood straight, eyes forward. Her rifle still at the present arms position, her hand not moving an inch towards her temple. She did not salute. The decision was not born of impulsive defiance, but of a quiet, burning conviction forged over years of witnessing injustice. A collective intake of breath swept through the nearest ranks. Murmurs, like agitated bees, buzzed for a second before being brutally stifled by the weight of Thorne's presence. The junior officer who had given the command turned a shade of sickly green, a bead of sweat tracing a path down his temple. Not saluting a general, especially Thorne, was an act of insubordination so egregious, so unthinkable, it bordered on treason. The air suddenly felt thinner, harder to breathe. General Thorne, walking slowly down the ranks, his piercing gaze sweeping over each soldier, came to an abrupt halt directly in front of Anya. The silence that followed was absolute, broken only by the distant caw of a desert bird and the frantic pounding of 1,000 hearts. Every eye, despite strict training, darted towards the scene. Drawn by the magnet of Thorne's terrifying aura and Anya's shocking defiance, he stood there for a long moment, studying her, his expression unreadable, a sphinx carved from granite. Anya met his gaze, her own dark eyes holding a quiet, unwavering resolve. There was no defiance, no arrogance in her stance, just a profound stillness, the calm before an inevitable storm. She felt the eyes of her comrades on her, a mixture of terror and desperate, unspoken hope. Sergeant Thorne's voice was a low, gravelly rumble, surprisingly calm, yet it vibrated with an implicit threat that made seasoned officers flinch. It was the calm of a predator, assessing its prey. "I believe you neglected to salute." General Anya's voice, though clear and steady, was barely above a whisper. Yet it carried in the oppressive silence, each syllable a tiny stone dropped into a still, deep well. It did not. The tremor among the soldiers intensified. Sweat beaded on foreheads. Had she lost her mind? Was this some elaborate suicide? Some clenched their jaws, anticipating the inevitable brutality. Others, particularly the younger recruits, looked utterly bewildered, unable to comprehend such open challenge. "And why?" Sergeant Thorne continued, his voice now laced with an icy edge. "Would you insult a superior officer and the Republic with such a blatant act of disrespect?" His tone suggested not curiosity, but a rhetorical prelude to swift punishment. Anya took a deep breath, the desert air filling her lungs, steadying her. She had anticipated this moment, rehearsed it in her mind countless times. This was her chance, perhaps her only chance, to speak the truth no one dared to utter. She thought of Kale, of the hundreds of other faceless casualties, of the hollow pronouncements from the capital. This wasn't for her, it was for them. "General," she began, her voice gaining strength, each word a deliberate hammer blow against the pervasive fear. "I was taught that a salute is a symbol of mutual respect. It is offered to those who have earned it through their leadership, their integrity, and their unwavering dedication to the welfare of their troops. It is a recognition of shared purpose and sacrifice." Thorne's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing, merely observed her. His silence was more menacing than any roar, a coiled spring waiting to unleash devastation. He was trying to gauge if this was foolishness, a political stunt, or something far more dangerous. "I have served the Republic for 10 years, General," Anya continued, her voice resonating with quiet conviction, a steady drumbeat against the silence. "I have seen brave men and women lay down their lives, not for glory, but for the ideals we swore to uphold. I have seen comrades broken, not by enemy fire, but by the weight of impossible orders and the indifference of those meant to lead them." Her gaze flickered over the assembled soldiers, seeing their unspoken agreement, their suppressed pain. She paused, her gaze sweeping over the silent ranks of soldiers, then back to the general, locking eyes with him once more. The sun beat down, turning the dust motes into sparkling specks around their confrontation. General Anya stated, her voice now ringing with a clear, unwavering tone that carried across the parade ground. "Cutting through the heavy air like a scalpel, you command respect through fear. Your victories are measured in conquered lands and slaughtered enemies. But what of the soldiers who fight your wars? What of the families left behind? What of the moral cost of your triumphs?" Her voice was not accusatory, but imbued with a profound sadness for what had been lost. She took another breath, her voice rising, shedding any hint of deference, becoming a clear, unwavering challenge. "I cannot salute a general who sacrifices his own troops for political gain, who values a statistic over a life, who sees us not as human beings with hopes and dreams, but as mere cogs in his war machine." The words hung in the air, audacious, treasonous, and utterly shattering. A gasp, this time audible, rippled through the ranks. Soldiers swayed, their rigid stances momentarily breaking under the sheer impact of her words. Some exchanged quick, terrified glances. The junior officers looked ready to faint, their faces white with terror and the dawning realization of the impossible event unfolding before them. No one, truly no one, had ever dared to speak to General Thorne like this. Anya had become their collective voice, articulating the resentment and despair they had been forced to swallow. Thorne's face, usually impassive, twitched, a muscle in his jaw clenched, visible even from a distance. His eyes, dark as obsidian, seemed to bore into Anya, searching for a crack, a sign of weakness. For a terrifying second, everyone expected him to lash out, to order her execution on the spot, to crush this unexpected rebellion of spirit with overwhelming force. His hand instinctively went to the hilt of his ceremonial sidearm and stopped. "You speak of sacrifice, Sergeant," Thorne finally said, his voice dangerously low, a predatory purr. "You speak of moral cost. What do you know of sacrifice beyond the battlefield? What do you know of the burdens of command, the impossible choices made to preserve a nation? His words dripped with a dismissive arrogance, as if her lived experience meant nothing. "I know," Anya retorted, unflinching, her voice steady. "That a general who sends battalions to their doom to secure a symbolic victory? A general who starves his frontline troops of vital supplies while stockpiling resources for his personal agenda? A general who silences dissent with summary executions. That general has forgotten the very meaning of duty. He has forgotten that his power comes from the people he claims to protect and the soldiers who bleed for him." Her voice resonated with a raw, undeniable truth that struck a chord deep within the hearts of the listening soldiers. Many of them had witnessed such atrocities, suffered under such decrees, but had been too terrified to voice their silent outrage. Anya was giving voice to their collective agony, a powerful current of solidarity beginning to flow through the ranks. The recent offensive in the Whisperwind Pass, Anya pressed on, her voice gathering momentum. 1,000 Republic soldiers died. For what, General? To secure a mining outpost that yields minimal resources, but offered a strategic foothold for your political faction back in the capital. We were told it was critical for national security. We found it was critical for your power. A ripple went through the crowd. This was specific, damning. This was information many of the ordinary soldiers had only suspected, whispered in hushed tones around campfires. The details stung, fresh wounds brought back to the surface, and the medical supplies diverted from Fort Astra to your private reserves. Anya continued, her eyes blazing with righteous indignation, while our wounded lay untreated, dying from infections that could have been cured. My own squad mate, Private Kale, lost his leg to gangrene because the antiseptic ran out. While your private medical bay in the capital is stocked with enough supplies to run a small city, the mention of Kale, a face known to many in the Legion, resonated with a particularly bitter ache. Thorn's steely gaze did not waver, but a flicker, perhaps of surprise, perhaps of something, akin to grudging respect for her sheer audacity. Or perhaps a sudden cold assessment of the damage she was inflicting crossed his face. He was calculating, rapidly analyzing the political fallout. "You accuse me of corruption, Sergeant?" Thorn asked, his voice now a low hiss, cold and dangerous, a predator contemplating a strategic retreat. "I accuse you of betraying the very ideals you swore to protect," Anya declared, her voice ringing clear and strong. "You have traded integrity for power, and the lives of your soldiers for your personal ambition. You have turned the Republic's military, meant to be its shield, into your personal instrument of tyranny. This is treason," Thorn roared, his voice finally losing its calm. Echoing across the silent parade ground, a desperate attempt to reassert control through sheer volume. "You will be summarily executed for this insubordination and slander." Anya did not flinch. Her gaze remained locked on his. "Then let it be known, General, that I die a soldier of the Republic, upholding its true values, unlike you. Let it be known that I refuse to salute not the flag, not the uniform, but the man who dishonors them both." She paused, then her voice dropped, filled with a sorrowful yet defiant power. "And let it be known that my death will not be in vain. For every soldier here, every man and woman who has silently endured your tyranny, now knows that a single voice, armed with truth, can shatter the illusion of absolute power." The dust seemed to settle, the air growing heavier with the weight of her conviction. The air crackled. The soldiers, frozen in their positions, felt the weight of her words, the truth of them. They had always feared Thorn, but now, watching Anya, they felt something else stirring within them. A spark of hope, a flicker of defiance. A few, emboldened by Anya's bravery, even dared to shift their weight. A subtle but significant break from their rigid posture. Thorn raised his hand, gesturing to his personal guard. The elite soldiers, trained to obey his every command without question, moved forward, weapons raised, their movements precise and intimidating. Anya braced herself, ready for the end. But then, an unexpected voice broke the silence, cutting through the tension like a blade. "General," it was Captain Elias Vance, Thorn's adjutant, a man known for his unwavering loyalty to the general. A man who had climbed the ranks by pleasing Thorn. Vance stepped forward, his face pale but resolute, a clear testament to the internal struggle he had just endured. He had seen the truth in Anya's words, the dangerous ground Thorn was treading. He knew the military would fracture if this continued. "General, with all due respect, Sergeant Sharma's accusations, they resonate with the men. I have seen the reports too. The supply discrepancies, the casualty numbers from Whisper Wind. The morale of the troops is at an all-time low because of these very issues. Vance's voice was steady, betraying none of the fear he surely felt. Executing her now, in front of this legion, would confirm every whispered truth, every fearful suspicion. Thorn turned, his eyes blazing at Vance, a silent warning to retreat. "Are you questioning my command, Captain?" "No, General," Vance said, standing his ground, his gaze unwavering. "I am appealing to your duty. If these accusations are true, and I fear many of them are, then executing Sergeant Sharma will only confirm them in the eyes of every soldier here. It will not silence the truth. It will amplify it. It will turn her into a martyr and ignite a rebellion you cannot hope to control." A nervous murmur spread through the ranks, louder this time. Rebellion. The word hung heavy in the air, no longer just a distant threat, but a palpable possibility. Thorn, the master manipulator, felt the tide turning, the dangerous undertow pulling at his authority. He understood that Vance, by speaking, had inadvertently confirmed much of what Anya had said, lending it credibility that his own denials could not erase. Thorn stared at Vance, then back at Anya. He was a master tactician, a cunning strategist, but even he had underestimated the raw power of unvarnished truth. He saw the shift in the soldiers' eyes, the almost imperceptible changes in their posture from terror to a nascent, dangerous questioning. He saw the respect, even admiration, in their eyes for the lone sergeant who dared to speak. He understood with a chilling clarity that this was not just about Anya Sharma anymore. It was about the integrity of his command, about the loyalty of an entire legion. Its empire, built on fear, was suddenly vulnerable. Sergeant Sharma, Thorn finally said, his voice regaining some of its earlier calm. But with an underlying tremor of fury and calculated restraint, a desperate attempt to salvage what little authority he had left. "Your insubordination is inexcusable. Your accusations are grave. However, the Republic values truth even when it is inconvenient." He knew the lie would be obvious, but he also knew he had to appear to uphold some semblance of justice. "You are hereby relieved of your command," Thorn announced, his voice booming across the parade ground, a final hollow roar of a wounded lion. "You will be confined to quarters pending a full military investigation into your allegations, as well as your conduct." He turned to the rest of the Legion, his gaze sweeping over them, trying to reassert his dominance. "Dismissed. All units return to your barracks." The command was given, and the soldiers, stunned, slowly began to break formation, their eyes still fixed on Anya as they moved. As they marched away, their steps seemed lighter, their expressions no longer filled with just fear, but with a glimmer of something new, a quiet defiance, a shared understanding, a spark ignited by Anya's courage. The air, though still hot, felt cleaner, charged with the energy of change. Anya was escorted away, not in chains, but by two of Thorn's guards, their faces unreadable, their steps careful. She walked with her head held high, her back straight, knowing she had faced her fears and spoken for those who couldn't. She had planted a seed of truth, and now it was up to others to nurture it. The investigation that followed was initially a farce, designed to save Thorn's reputation and silence Anya, but it failed spectacularly. Anya's testimony, delivered with the same quiet conviction she showed on the parade ground, was bolstered by anonymous leaked documents that mysteriously appeared in the hands of key senators. The evidence exposed the general's rampant corruption, his reckless disregard for human life, and his calculated political maneuvering. The Republic, shaken by the scandal and fearing a full-scale military uprising, could not ignore the public outcry, nor the growing unrest within its military ranks. The truth, once spoken, was impossible to contain. General Alaric Thorn, the Iron Fist, was stripped of his command, his medals, and his reputation. He was disgraced, exiled to a remote, forgotten corner of the Republic, his name forever synonymous with treachery and abuse of power. Anya Sharma, the sergeant who refused to salute, did not become a general. She did not seek high office or political power. Instead, after her exoneration, she chose to remain a soldier, dedicating her life to genuine reform. She worked tirelessly to establish fair treatment for troops, to ensure proper supply lines reached the front. and to implement new protocols that emphasized the well-being of the individual soldier over abstract strategic gains. She rose steadily through the ranks, eventually reaching major, known not for her ruthlessness, but for her unwavering integrity, her deep, abiding care for the men and women under her command, and the quiet strength of her conviction. And though she never sought the salutes of generals, every soldier who passed her on the parade ground, from the newest recruit to the most grizzled veteran, snapped to attention with a precision born. It's not of fear, but of profound respect and genuine admiration. And often, as their hands came to their temples, a small, knowing smile would touch their lips, because they knew. They knew what she had dared to say, and how that one moment of truth, a single unsaluted hand, had changed everything.